Ireland is one of the slowest growing commercial airline markets in the world. In fact, seat capacity into Ireland is expected to shrink this quarter, the only top 20 European country showing a decline.
This isn't a chicken licking, it's going to get bad. It's bad already because winter slots are down 6%, passenger numbers are down 6%.
But it's not because the demand isn't there. It's because the country's biggest airport, Dublin, has imposed a winter seat cap of 14.4 million passengers, with another potential summer cap to follow. It's a somewhat extreme measure, and one that airlines are not too happy with, for obvious reasons.
We can't grow at Dublin Airport, and Dublin Airport is losing aircraft routes, traffic, jobs to other European airports. In the last month, we've switched 4 aircraft away from Dublin to southern Italy.
Dublin Airport is in a bit of a pickle. 17 years ago, when they first began construction on the new Terminal 2, they agreed to an annual passenger cap of 32 million. At the time, the airport was handling about 23 million passengers per year, and it was believed that anything above 32 would create significant congestion on the M50 roadway connecting Dublin Airport to the city. But fast forward to 2024, and the airport unintentionally blew past its 32 million cap. Chaos did not ensue on the M50, partially because the roads are now better and partially because there's a pretty nifty bus service that mitigates car traffic. Chaos didn't ensue on the airfield either, thanks to the shiny new north runway that Dublin Airport opened in 2022 at a cost of 320 million euros. These factors, taken together, mean the airport can now support much more than 32 million passengers without turning into a post-apocalyptic clusterfuck. Our friends over at Ryanair are of the opinion that Dublin's true capacity is somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 million passengers per year. And look, I hope they can get there, but in a way that doesn't sacrifice their valuable relationships with passengers, airlines, the government, and the local community. Relationships are really important to me, and thanks to today's sponsor, BetterHelp, I've personally spent some time reflecting on ways I can improve my own relationships, especially as someone who is almost always either traveling or working. Now, to be completely honest, I'm actually quite happy with my relationships most of the time, but no one's perfect, and traveling introduces a ton of stressors. The crowds, the time zone changes, the language barriers, the phone coverage gaps. And to be honest, sometimes I question if I'm putting in enough time and effort to keep in touch with my family, my friends, and even my coworkers. It's okay to have these questions, and sometimes you just can't answer them all yourself. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, was my first idea to go get therapy through BetterHelp? No. But when they reached out, I figured it was worth a try, and I didn't regret it. My therapist has been really supportive and encouraging while also challenging me to think about my relationships in new ways, just creating really positive energy overall. So whether you're looking to repair a struggling relationship, improve a healthy relationship, or you're just looking for the motivation to start a new relationship, I'd encourage you to give BetterHelp a try. To get started, all you need to do is fill out a short questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple days. If you don't jive with the first therapist you're matched with, that's totally okay. You can switch at any time and at no cost. Now look, everyone's situation is different and online therapy isn't for everyone. But I think it's worth taking the first step, and the company has worked hard to establish a 4.5-star rating on Trustpilot with over 7,000 reviews. So if there's anyone to start your therapy journey with, it's them. For 10% off your first month of therapy, go to betterhelp.com/flaps10. Alright, back to Ireland, where the Dublin Airport Authority has applied to raise the passenger cap twice. First, they applied for 40 million passengers, a proposal that would have required them to invest 2.4 billion euros in airport expansion. The application itself was 7,000 pages long and detailed 11 distinct initiatives, everything from more apron space to more terminal space to bigger car parks to better airfield drainage. A very thoughtful proposal indeed, but as you can imagine, a document of that size takes forever to evaluate, and come late 2024, the local governing body, the Fingal County Council, was still nowhere close to being able to approve the application. Now, to reiterate, until an expansion is granted, Dublin is still technically capped at 32 million passengers per year, a condition that the Irish Airport Authority is determined to enforce. So if you're wondering who to thank for these proposed passenger caps, it's them, the IAA. But you better believe airlines aren't just going to let this go without a fight. Ryanair's CEO, Michael O'Leary, has been particularly vocal, as you'd expect, even labeling Ireland's transport minister as a dunce for not stepping in to scrap the cap.
They're green dunce caps. They're environmentally sensitive. Never understand where these people make up this nonsense from. If my aunt had should be my uncle.
When that tactic didn't work, O'Leary took legal action, arguing that the IAA's caps were in breach of EU rules on freedom of movement. Now, that argument was sufficiently sound, apparently, for the Irish High Court to temporarily suspend the cap, referring the case to the European Court of Justice to make a final decision on the matter. So for the time being, airlines can plan their summer schedules as they please, but the decision could be reversed, and Dublin Airport needs to be prepared for any outcome. Speaking of outcomes, I am beyond flattered that more than 10,000 of you have clicked that subscribe button, so thank you. It feels like we've really built sort of a community here, but there's still so many of you I haven't met yet. So my goal for this year is to meet more of you. Whether you work in the aviation industry or just follow it from afar, I would love to hear your story and just chat in general about airlines, airplanes, airports, you name it. If you're interested in connecting, all you need to do is submit your contact info on my website, and I'll try my best to reach out, especially if I'm visiting your city or country. As a token of my appreciation, everyone who fills out the form will be entered to win a $50 gift card to an airline of your choosing, and I'll be picking 2 winners at the end of March. Hopefully by then, our friends over at the DAA will have had some success with their second attempt to raise the passenger cap, this time to a more conservative number of 36 million instead of 40. Unlike the 40 million proposal, this one, submitted in December of last year, was a so-called no-build proposal, one that wouldn't require new construction, so it could technically make its way through the approval process quicker. You'd think that the 36 million number would be more palatable to the Fingal County Council, and initially the application was well received. However, in mid-January, the FCC reversed course, saying the proposal was invalid because it failed to comply with sections of the Planning and Development Regulations of 2001. And I'm not going to pretend to know all the details here, but on the outside looking in, it does seem like the FCC is just trying to find an excuse to block this thing. To be fair, not everyone is for the expansion. In fact, many local residents have been frustrated by growth at Dublin Airport. They already took a bit of an L when the North Runway opened in 2022, bringing more traffic, bigger planes, and new noise to neighborhoods that previously weren't in the flight paths of arriving and departing aircraft. Of course, the airport took steps to mitigate impact to residents. They offered to buy homes at 20% above market value for those living in high noise level areas, and they also offered to purchase noise insulation for those wishing to remain in their homes. The North Runway has a nighttime curfew from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And lastly, when it is open, it reduces the need to use the crosswind runway, which brings traffic over more densely populated urban areas like Santry and Dublin City. And not to linger on the legislation, but you're never going to please everyone. Airports will create noise, they will create traffic, but they also create jobs, drive tourism, facilitate business and trade, and provide essential connectivity to destinations both domestic and abroad. These are issues pretty much all growing international airports face, and it really comes down to the local authorities being able to convince residents that the benefits will outweigh the drawbacks. And look, I'm not going to pick a side here, but I do think it is eye-opening to contemplate the economic consequences if the summer cap actually stands. First, you have 300,000 lost tourists at an average spend of 1,750 euros per person, adding up to 525 million euros in lost revenue. And this takes into account those who could potentially fly into Shannon or Cork instead of Dublin. And then you have lost wages associated with aviation jobs that either were eliminated or weren't created due to the artificial reduction in demand.
It will take a big dent in aviation jobs, which is about 1,000 jobs on the campus of Dublin Airport. There'll be about at least 5,000 tourism jobs would go.
And that's just for 2025. If the cap remains in place through 2030, which I admit is highly unlikely, that number could rise to 20,000 jobs. Then, of course, you have the impact to the airlines.
All the airlines are scratching their heads going, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is the country that's an island, famous for travel, famous for Ryanair, Aer Lingus, the leasing industry, really good airports. Airports like Manchester and Gatwick are rubbing their hands going, this is great.
So when it comes to lost ticket revenue, here's what we're looking at. Aer Lingus and Emerald Airlines, which are more reliant on Dublin as their main hubs, could stand to lose 85 million euros in 2025. Ryanair, which is about 10 times the size of Aer Lingus from a fleet size perspective, estimates they could stand to lose 50 million euros in 2025, which is no small number, but smaller than Aer Lingus just because they're a little less reliant on Dublin and could shift planes to elsewhere in Europe. Now, to be clear, I don't think this cap is an existential threat for any of these airlines. In fact, the financial impact of fewer flights could be partially offset by higher airfares. They might have to take some cost-cutting measures, but they'd survive. Aer Lingus has the backing of IAG, and Ryanair is, well, potentially the most successful low-cost carrier of all time. The real losers here, in my view, would be the small businesses, tour operators, hotels, restaurants, pubs, heck, even sports teams in Ireland who rely on tourism. And yes, not just Dublin, but all across the country. Because airlines aren't just shifting their capacity from Dublin to other places in Ireland like Shannon and Cork, but they're shifting it away from Ireland completely to the UK and Europe. And need I remind you that Ireland is an island. You can't get there by train from London or Paris. This is a country that relies heavily on air travel for tourism and trade. And I know I said I wouldn't pick a side, but as a tourist myself and just a general cheerleader for the commercial aviation industry, I really hope the cap gets increased, within reason of course, so Ireland's economy can unlock its full potential. Open the floodgates, if you will, and seats this summer are forecasted to be up 6% instead of down 4%, a nearly 10 percentage point swing. Most of the growth would be driven by Ryanair, which would operate a record 123 routes out of Dublin, giving the Irish people more access to places like Faro, Ibiza, Malta, Milan, and Valencia. Now, Aer Lingus. Aer Lingus isn't quite on the same growth trajectory as Ryanair, as they face problems of their own in 2024, but they would still benefit in the sense they don't have to reduce capacity and take out more costs. No matter what, they're going to have to face the fact that they've been losing transatlantic market share to US carriers. But more competition is good, as it has forced them to adapt, and having just flown them a few weeks back, I get the sense things are headed in the right direction. What are your thoughts on the whole passenger cap debacle? I'd love to hear your perspective, especially if you live in Ireland, as I know some non-Dublin residents view this as an opportunity to bring more flights into their own respective regions. And I get it, Ireland is so much more than just Dublin. The castles, the cliffs, the music, the beer, the golf. So I'm hoping that in any scenario, the Donegals, the Killarneys, the Shannons, the Corks of the world can still get their time in the spotlight. More to come on this fascinating country. But for now, Slán agat. Thanks for coming along with me today, and I wish you the safest and happiest of travels wherever your journeys may take you. So long.